Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us again on the Seafood Matters podcast. If you kindly press subscribe or share it with as many people as possible, that's a real help for our series. Joining us today is Ashley Mullenger, extensively known as the Female Fisherman. Hi Ashley, welcome to Seafood Matters.
Hello Jim, how are you?
I'm really well, thanks. I am great to see you on. I'm delighted to have you. We've been trying for a wee while now.
We have, but my schedule gets all over the place and I don't know what I'm doing on the day most of the time until the day gets here.
That sounds like an exciting life. You don't want to know what you're going to do every day.
No, you don't.
Ashley,
Every day's a surprise.
Ashley, you're known widely as the Female Fisherman. I'd like to start right there. Why that name? What does it mean to you?
I created a social media account and I was like, what shall I call myself? And it was just one of those things that was like the obvious thing. It's like, you're a fisherman and you're female. So that let's just mash those words together. And that was that. And I never thought about what kind of impact that might have further down the line.
Okay, so that's where it was born.
It was, yeah, and I've spoken a lot about the term fisherman, and I get it quite a lot. Like, but you're a woman, wouldn't you want to be called fisherwoman, or that term fisher, which I know is used a lot in the industry, and I'm not a massive fan of at all. I mean, ultimately, this industry's been built, the catching sector, predominantly by men, and I'm not about to breeze in and say, no, I want this all changing. I want to feel proud of the fact that I can call myself a fisherman because of the lives that have been given for this industry that have gone before me. And the term fisher, every time it's used in a meeting that I'm in, it makes me feel singled out, like, oh, they're only using that term because there's a woman in the room. And that makes you feel more alienated because most of the men in there dislike that term. So yeah, it can be a bit difficult.
Tell our listeners about your journey in logistics management to becoming a full-time fisherman. What challenges and rewards in pursuing is it your passion in a male-dominant industry?
So, I mean, I never planned on this as a job. Like, I would have never known if you'd have asked me at like 10 years old. Like, a lot of young children from fishing families, they want to go into the job. But for me, I'm not from a family with any kind of maritime heritage. And I was working in an office, like you say, kind of doing logistics management. So often it was responsive. So boiler breakdowns for the social housing sector, making sure that we had enough engineers to answer all those calls for no heating and hot water. Winter was awful. But yeah, that was what I was doing. And it was kind of just like a 9 to 5 grind. And then a bunch of work colleagues and myself decided, you know what, let's go and do something at the weekend. And I said, why don't we go fishing? I'd always loved fishing growing up, like not sea fishing, but just like sat by a lake angling. So I thought I'll give sea fishing a try. And I typed into Google Norfolk sea fishing. And before you know it, I've booked myself on this trip for 3.5 hours to go and catch some mackerel. And that was where I think the spark, I know that's where the spark hit.
That's fantastic. And how did you first find yourself in fishing? Was it family or was it a path you chose later?
It was definitely a path that I chose, but it was a path that it took me a long time to choose. So I went on that mackerel trip with the skipper of the boat, whose name was Nigel, and he couldn't get rid of me. And it got to the point, honestly, poor Nigel. He couldn't get rid of me. And it got to the point where he was like, don't bother booking anymore and paying for your trips. Just, if you've got the time on a weekend, just come out. You can look after yourself now. You know what you're doing. And that was that. And then he asked me, would I come and crew for him the next summer? Because his son who was crewing for him, was going to work on one of the commercial boats in Wells. So I said, well, I've got a full-time job, Nige. And he said, yeah, but just like the weekends is when I'm busy and maybe take a couple of days of your annual leave. So I did that. And I really loved this whole different lifestyle that I was getting from that. I mean, in an office, I was bombarded every single day with emails and phone calls. And then I went out to sea And I experienced this completely different reality where my phone couldn't ring because I didn't have signal, and it was peaceful and it was quiet, and there was something so raw about it, and so unman-made, which is so totally different to an office setting. And it took me a long time to realise this is where you need to be, Ashley, to find pure happiness. And I mean, Nigel then sold his charter angling boat, but he bought a commercial boat. And he said to me after, I was like, I can't work on that. I'm not capable. It's too much. And I would still go out on the nice days when, don't tell the MCA, obviously. I'd still go out and sit on the wheelhouse roof and watch him hauling whelk pot. And then eventually he said, "You are miserable in an office. Come back and work for me." And I was like, "I can't do that. I'm a girl." He's like, "No, I've got like jobs for you ashore. I've got pots that need mending. I've got paperwork needs doing, bait that needs sorting. I can guarantee you X amount a week." And I said, "You know what? Life's too short. I'm going to do that." And that whole process took about 10 years for me to actually think, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take the risk, take the leap, and go and just carve out an entirely different future for myself.
What a fantastic story. I hope this doesn't sound sexist in this positively correct era, but if you take the clock back even further when you were younger in school and that, would you have classed yourself, as we used to say then, a tomboy?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And don't worry, Jim, you won't offend me. You'll do really well to offend me. Yes, I would definitely do that. I mean, I was always more interested in doing the kind of jobs that needed doing with my dad than I was, sitting around and doing, the indoors. I was an outdoorsy kid.
Yeah.
I normally had, scraped, cut open knees, bruises. And I found that to be more exciting. So yes, I guess I was always drawn to that stereotypical tomboy.
One of the things I find fascinating about your story, Ashley, is, and I genuinely mean this, I've been in the fishing industry in one format or another since I was born. I'm in my 70s now. And I've found over the years, and I'm sure you've met many people like yourself who are not from a fishing background. I know many people in our industry think, oh, if you're not from a fishing community, you don't understand the industry, you don't know it. I feel from the people I've met over the years that have not come from a fishing background, it's like a breath of fresh air, and they take new ideas and thoughts into an industry that needs that.
I would completely agree with that. I think this industry should be really proud of its diversity of people that it welcomes. And I was speaking to a fisherman not that long ago, and he said, "In what other job can you go into where there's no bias? You can be, if you're willing, a hard day's work, and you're willing to give your all to something, this industry does not judge you, and it treats people fairly. It treats people with respect. And you're right, people not from this industry do have different ideas, different perspectives, have come from different walks in life. And you're right, it's a breath of fresh air."
Definitely, I found that very much the case. Can you share your insights into the fishing industry and the need for conservation and support, as you have made an enormous contribution to this industry?
I don't know about enormous, but I'm trying. I mean,
I mean the words I've used.
they're very kind. I'm very grateful. My insights into the industry. It's, when I first started like commercially working in this industry, I found there was so much to learn, and there still is so much to learn about where this industry has been for the last 60 to 70 years and where it's going. And I was absolutely fascinated by the politics of it all, and how it all worked, and how everything fits together, and how, you can't have, we often hear quite a lot of this divide in the industry. You've got the under 10s and you've got the over 10s, small boats, big boats, nomadic fleets, all this. But you can't have any of that without the rest. And it is a constantly moving beast of a place, for only 4,000 or so odd boats that we have left now, it's still extremely complicated, and it's so rich with information and legacy. It completely fries my mind how little is known about the commercial fishing space, and how every fish in the sea is basically a public resource, and how little our actual general public know of seafood, where it comes from, who catches it. I think that's been one of my biggest sort of learning curves.
Well, there's always a survey. They asked a school in New York question, where does seafood come from? And the answer was the supermarket. So doesn't that not tell a story itself?
It really does. And you know what? I don't think that's even exclusive to fish. I think that's exclusive to food production everywhere. Whether you're looking into, agriculture, seafood, I think not just children, I think people are really disconnected from where our food is coming from. And I love being able to make that connection for them through social media. Just, this is what we do. This is how we do it. This is what it looks like. This is where it comes from. This is the hours we've done. This is the time we're leaving. Just to make something real turn into a piece of seafood.
One of the things I do love, I find your enthusiasm is actually infectious. It's lovely. And
thank you.
Let us ask you, stepping on board in what was still a very male-dominant job right at the start, how were you received?
Well, I was really lucky, Jim, because I'd been knocking about for about 10 years, on the charter angling boat, doing that, being a face that was kind of already known in the community of people on boats within, Wells next to the sea. It didn't really come as a great shock to anybody, I don't think. It was like, oh, Ash is back and she's working with Nige again. And so therefore I already had a foot in the door. I already knew the people. Some of them I knew better than others. So actually, like in the community I was in, I was really well received. And wider than that, especially through social media, I put myself out there on social media, and, that gained some traction. And actually, from most part of the industry, the 99.9% of this industry, and let's face it, it is predominantly male, have been nothing but supportive. The messages, the comments, the feedback that I get from other people in the catching sector is lovely. And they don't treat me any different to a man. They send lovely messages of support, and, and beyond that, they'll sometimes ask me for my advice on things as well, which is even more stunning.
Well, to put you in a picture on my side, how the saying I used when I had the seafood restaurant, I would give you a medal the size of my biggest soup plate, because I was one of that in the male-dominant society. I was part of that. And my wife, just say I was on the fish market someday and she had to call in to leave something with me or get a key or any small thing. She felt so uncomfortable anywhere near that fish market for that reason.
To be fair, Jim, like in the real world, and it's completely different. Me on social media is me on social media, but then me in the real world, if I have to go into somewhere that might be, full of men, like a fish market or something like that, I still feel extremely conscious as a woman, even though I know, nobody really gives a shit that I'm a woman and that I'm there. I still feel very conscious of my gender and being, in the minority. But do I let anybody see that? Absolutely not. Do I put my big brave face on and be like, yeah, it's me, it's fine? Yeah, of course I do.
Brilliant. Give us a picture. What does a typical day at sea look like for you?
That's a really good question, because a typical day at sea for us now and what we do is actually completely different to what it was 5 years ago. And 5 years ago it would be a case of leaving the harbour early, because Wells next to the sea is a tidal harbour, so we've only got a 4-hour window to get in and out, and then you're out for the day and waiting for the next tide. And to any of your listeners listening who work from a harbour that doesn't dry out, you don't know how lucky you are, just saying that. But it used to be a case of working 14, 15-hour days, and doing as many pots as you could in that time to make as much money as you could, for your product. But now things have changed dramatically, especially for what we do. And it all boils down, I think, to the fact that we have a smaller boat than we used to that doesn't have the expense costs like, the older boats that we've had, which had a higher running cost on them. And we've really thought about what we're doing and what are the impacts of what we're doing on the environment. And, we're trying to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So where we might have used to have worked 700 pots in a day, now that number's more like 300 or so. And actually, we're taking more care at the back end of things. And when I say back end of things, I mean like the marketing and doing direct sales to the public, to restaurants, chefs locally, and really focusing on the things that we were doing anyway, but actually marketing them and making them a marketable thing, and then actually adding value to the price of our product. So, we don't have to catch as much because we're making better money on a smaller amount. And that's just feeding into this, ethos of sustainability, which is kinder on the environment, it's kinder on the boat, it's kinder on Nige, it's kinder on your body. So now a typical day doesn't look like leaving the harbour at the first available opportunity and getting back when you get back. It looks like we'll go when it's a bit more sociable time, and we'll do what we can, and if we do great, fantastic, but if we don't do so great, it's not the end of the world. But it's more about that now as a full day, rather than let's get out there, let's haul as many pots as we can and come home again. It's different now.
As I love hearing that, Ashley, I genuinely do, because where I'm coming from, what I take out of that is you're running it, you're business people, because it is a business. And you're right. If you can lower the expense and increase the sales, it's so positive.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, it's not been easy to get to this point, and there's been a lot of barriers to overcome, mostly from fisheries management and the like, and reporting on this and catch record that, and the fish hub, and making sure that you're registered buyers and sellers. So there's been a lot of challenges, but the rewards are great. I don't know what the lobster price fell to this summer. I think it was about £10.50, £11 a kilo, or in the sort of factories. But we were 25.50 a kilo all year. Just through that selling of being able to see where your fish is coming from, and the restaurants and the chefs love that. Making sure that every buried lobster that's coming up is being V-notched and thrown back, and customers can see that, chefs can see that. We're completely transparent in what we do, and marketing it. You can eat your lobster and buy your lobster, chef, with a clear conscience that it wasn't scrubbed or something like that. So yeah, it's done really well.
When you're talking about that as well, going from 700 down to 300, I'm going back now to the 60s, late 50s into the 60s. And the boat, it wasn't, when I say my father's boat, it wasn't my father's boat, it was a family boat. All his brothers were on board. Now, there were 5 of a crew, and part of the year they would be at Senet, and the other part of the year they were at Creels, the lobsters. They made a good living, Ashley, and the most creels they ever had out was 110.
And I quite believe it, Jim. I hear this all the time from fishermen who say we would never work that much. We would never have worked that much. But it seems like that number of pots that's being worked is just constantly going up, 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 up.
Yeah, and I just don't buy into this idea that the way to make more money is to put more creels out, because
right. I mean, it's difficult. It's so difficult. I get it, because let's be realistic. Like, boats now want for more than they probably ever have, because we've got this technology. We've got probably faster, more capable boats. They can push more weather, but with that comes a higher expense of running. So you need to take so much more from the sea to make the job viable before anyone's even earned anything. So, and the margins, you look at our economy and what everything's costing now, the cost of bait, the cost of running freezers, everything's going up, but fish doesn't seem to be going up in the same trajectory as everything else. So people are under pressure, and I think the margins are just getting so tight that I think if we don't change something really soon, you're going to only see people on the micro industry and big industry, and that middle sector of boats is going to really struggle.
Well, here's an example. A good friend of mine built a new boat in the late 90s, 98, 99. Coming off the shipyard, ready for fishing. His first fill of diesel was 8 pence a litre.
Oh, the dream.
And when you think of what you pay now, the fish you're all catching, they've not gone up that extent.
No, of course they haven't.
So, and it's just ticked so many boxes in my head with the way you're talking there, because I used to always think back on my father and my uncles, his brothers, and what you're doing is just pretty much mirrors them, what they were doing. And it's don't fish it too hard, but make sure you've got the best market.
Yeah. So what changed? What changed, Jim? Like, obviously, back then they had the right idea. Look after the process from the start all the way to the finish. What changed? And I'm interested to. I love learning about this industry. I love learning about its history, and obviously everything that's happened has been kind of tiny little changes, tiny little increments, little knee-jerk reactions to tiny little things in fisheries management, which have had unintended consequences. So we put a plaster on that, and then we get another unintended consequence, and we put a plaster on that. And now we're where we are.
Definitely. As a matter of interest to you, our recently released podcast, it's a guy in the Maritime States in East Canada, The Lobster Trap. That's his book. I'll tell you that from what you're talking there and fishing for lobsters and that. I'm not trying to promote my podcast, but it would be an interesting listen. And I'm reading his book, The Lobster Trap, and I get fascinated when you realize how people have got a title for their book. You're not long reading it before you realize why it's called The Lobster Trap. Everybody involved is in the trap.
I'm going to have to download that one and read that, I think.
It's
put that on my list.
Just The Lobster Trap. Greg Mercer is the author. He's not from a fishing background. He's a reporter with a paper there, but my goodness, in fairness to him, he's thoroughly researched it and talked direct with fishermen and scientists and everybody else. But what's happened there is just frightening.
I think I'm going to have to add that to my list of things to read.
There was one state, and you're going to think I've got this wrong. There was 11 million, as they called it, traps, and that was 1% of all the traps.
You're kidding. Wow.
That was 1%.
Wow.
So, and it's awful because there's disease set in. It's a fascinating read.
Yeah, it sounds it.
He talks about it really well. So, going on, what's the toughest part of the job, and then the part that gives you the most pride? What would you say it was?
I would say the toughest part is predicting the future, and I don't mean that in the literal sense. I mean that in the way that, running a small boat, you are so limited by weather and things like that. So it's that not being able to financially necessarily plan very well because you just don't know what the weather's going to do, and you are completely at the mercy of it. So that's really difficult. And couple that with what's coming for fisheries in the future. Is it worth investing into this sector? Do I make plans to do X, Y, and Z? So it's that. I think it's that unpredictability that I find the toughest, especially coming from a situation and a background where I got a monthly salary. Regardless of how well or not well I did that month, I would be paid regardless. Whereas fishing's not like that. it's completely unpredictable. And even if you can get to sea, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to earn any money.
Yeah, that's very much a fishing. Yeah.
Yeah, you hope, you can take your best guess, but
You know,
nothing's ever set in stone.
well, there's a good one. A good friend of mine, Alan Addison, a fisherman up here, and he's a great term which reminded me when you said that. He reckons all that issues that you said, guaranteed you're going to get fish and all the rest of it. He reckons that's why it's called the fishing and not the catching.
Yeah, so true. Do you know what? And sometimes, like, I've tried to explain it to people as well. Like, but why do you love it? What do you keep doing? And I liken it to a gambling addiction. Fishing is like it is. Tell me I'm wrong, Jim. You pay your money, you put your pots out, you shoot. You lay it down. You think, right, is this it? Am I going to win big? And even when you don't, you still come back. It's a gambling addiction. That's what it is.
Well, that's quite good because another one a friend up here uses, which could add gambling addiction to it, because he says at times it's not an industry, it's a disease.
Yeah, he's right. He's right. And once it gets you, it's got you good.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Said it already about your own position. Do you see yourself as a role model for women, or would you rather people just saw you as a fisherman who happens to be a female?
Both. No, I don't see myself as a role model. I'm just that girl that decided to become a fisherman. However, I feel like I've probably become one by mistake, and I've been reached out to by young women. I think I spoke to a young lady the other day. She was only 14, and she was adamant that this is what she wants to do. She wants to go into fishing, and good for her. And she said, I've seen what you do, and I've looked at this and I've looked at that, and it's so inspiring, and it it made me quite emotional to think that she's looking at me and thinking, yes, I can do that because I can see another woman doing that. There's this old expression, you can't be what you can't see. So I guess I'm the unintentional role model that I didn't ever plan to be.
Well, you are, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
What about your award-winning title and your efforts to raise awareness of female empowerment in the fishing industry?
An absolute, like, once in a lifetime moment that will never leave me. Fisherman of the Year in 2022 was something I had never planned on, never thought I could achieve. Yet the award sits on my windowsill, and I'm looking at it now with great pride. And I'm still speechless about it, if I'm honest with you, Jim. But it really was a pivotal moment, I think, for women in the sector. And we can't forget as well that Isla Gale from the Isle of Man also won that year. Petition to change the Isle of Man to the Isle of Woman is what I think, because she is a powerhouse. But yeah, a real pivotal moment for me of acceptance within the space and achievement. For something that I didn't set out to be a role model. I didn't set out to be someone that was massively, I don't want to say influential on social media, because I don't see myself as, that's not something that I'm pushing to be. All I want to do is connect people with seafood and connect with other people in the industry. That's the reason I started the account, and nothing more. It wasn't that I thought I would want to be a role model to women or become a voice for the industry. It was just, I just set it up one day.
Well, it's happened.
It happened, yeah.
Which is brilliant. Are you noticing more women showing interest in coming into the industry?
Oh, 100% we are. So I also do work for the UK Women in Fisheries Network. Shameless plug. Any women in the industry are free to join. And when I first started working on the boat, I could name 2 other women that were full-time, on boats. And now I can't even name them all because there's that many. It's got to be over 30 to 40 women. And we're seeing lots of new young women coming through and being absolutely amazing, basically. And I love that.
It's really, yes, definitely. And I mean, it's nothing to be, it's in a number of industries now. It's it's not uncommon to see a big articulated lorry and a woman driving it.
I saw that just the other day, and I looked up and I saw a woman driving this lorry, and I thought, yes, love.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Fishing has always been rooted in heritage, with knowledge passed down through generations. Do you feel that sense of tradition is still alive, or are we losing that?
I think it's still alive, but I think it's very hard to seek out. Um, I certainly wouldn't have learnt the things that I've learnt about this industry and this space without having had that knowledge passed down from people that have lived through the last, 5 decades of change in the industry, and change how it's being managed. Um, but those people are slowly retiring, and we're seeing less and less of those sorts of people in our communities, and we need to hold on to them because they're gold dust. They've lived through the best times and the worst times, and their insights, their knowledge, their passion needs to be imparted to a newer and younger generation, so that we don't lose our identities, we don't lose our heritage, we don't lose the legacy of fishing. So I do think it's still there, but I think it's becoming harder and harder to find out. Find those little diamonds in the communities of that older generation that have seen a lot of change and can learn from them.
I know myself, and Ashley, on a personal basis, I'll just say I'm out in the evening with a dog. It's a nice frosty evening, dark, and it's not too cloudy. And I'll see planets, see star constellations. I can pick out every one of them. Now, I'm not trying to profess that I'm an astrologer or into that in any way. I learned it all from my father.
Of course.
And that's what they used. He used to joke and say, if there was anything about how important the sun was, he used to always say, well, the moon's more important to me.
Yeah.
The phases of the moon was going to tell them the strength of the tides, and
Yes.
you'll know, you'll get that, I'm sure. They'll use it.
And absolutely. It's things like that, and it's things like, especially in local communities, there's local landmarks and things that you'll take from the land, and you'll know where you are, and people will say, oh, I saw you, and they'll reference a place which is a marker from the land to say, oh, you want to be a bit further that way, or you want to be going a little bit that way, and reference a church or something like that.
Yeah.
And they plot their fishing grounds from that.
Yeah, definitely. How different is the job today compared to the old ways we were talking about, with technology, regulation, and maybe that's a bad word for you from what you said earlier, and all the changes that have come in?
I wish I'd known a time when things were simpler. I mean, I started commercially fishing in 2018. I've never known a time when there wasn't a digital plotter on the boat and things like that. So it's really hard for me to answer that. But, from what we were saying earlier, and going back and looking at, the amount of pots people were doing, and how they were seeing that whole process through, and selling directly, and things like that, I think I do kind of want to go back to that. And, we get 5G signal at sea now. I don't really want that either. Yeah, difficult one to answer that, Jim, because I wasn't there before.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, but you've been there a wee while now. I'm sure technology has come on a lot, even in your time.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, to be fair, it probably has. But it's still probably fairly new, fancy technology, and it's always really expensive. So we'll just carry on with what we've got. And I will die on this hill. I've still got a GP32. We've got a GP32, which everyone in the fishing community listening will know what that is. But it's basically the most basic of. I don't even think you can call it a plotter. It just tells you your speed, it tells you your course, it tells you your battery voltage, and I don't know when the GP32 came out, but I will die on this hill that it is the best piece of technology that exists. Anything too modern, no thank you. That GP32, I bought it for £10 at a boat jumble, and just chef's kiss, perfection.
I'll have to tell you, Ashley, I've got a notepad beside me here just to take odd notes of something I want to remember. And that one is definitely at the top of the list.
What is a GP32?
No, I'm going to die on this hill. I love it.
I'm going to die on this. Oh yeah, I'm going to die on this hill. Yes, yeah, that's the best GPS ever made was the GP32. And now they're becoming. I think I even emailed the manufacturer to say, have you got any of these hanging around in your factory? Because most boats you buy have one on, but the most recent boat that we bought, Sorsha, didn't have one. So I was trawling eBay everywhere for a GP32, and then I came across one at like a boat jumble for about a tenner, and I thought, does it work? I don't know. I don't care. I'm going to risk it, and it works. And it's just perfection.
If I could just pull you up there when you mentioned the name of your boat. What did you call it?
I said it wrong, Jim. But it's Sorsha. No, well, it's Sorsha. I say Sorsha because I've not got a beautiful Gaelic accent. But
is it Irish?
Yes, it's a woman's name meaning freedom.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. And boat names are a deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
If a boat was lovely, if it was a lovely boat but it had a horrendous name, no, not interested.
What's your views on boat names if you're changing boats and that? There's a great superstition with a lot of more older people, but it still exists. And
well, I would never change a boat name, Jim.
Okay, because what we say up here is you change the name, you change the luck.
Yeah, I see. I wouldn't. For me, I think I am quite superstitious, which I know is ironic because women are bad luck on boats as well. But but no, I would never change the name of a boat. I think I've looked into it. Not that I ever would, but I think there's like a whole ritual you have to do about writing the name in a box, burning the box, running around the deck, like spreading the ashes of the burnt box at sea so that it tallies on Davy Jones's locker that he's gotten the soul of that boat or something like that. I just wouldn't. I would never change the name of a boat.
Going on, we hear a lot of talk about sustainable fishing, usually maybe campaigners and NGOs. But from your perspective, being out on the water there, what does sustainability actually mean to you?
Great question, and something that's we're seeing a lot more pressure on. Every week, every year, sustainability is a key buzzword in so many industries. But I think for me, it falls down to knowing what you do, seeing what you see, experiencing what you experience. You know what a catch should look like to you. You know what's right. You know what's wrong. What you should be doing. What you shouldn't be doing. And I think there's always this thing of you should be thinking in your head, how can I be more responsible in what I'm doing? What can I do better? For your environment, for what you're doing. And I think for us, it was a case of what can I do better? And it was a case of, okay, we can work less pots and we can make sure that, back end, we're going to maintain better price. For us, that was a massive step to taking our own. I hate the word sustainability, if I'm completely honest with you, Jim, because I feel like it's been given this, like this shining jewel of a thing. Oh, we're sustainable. But I actually feel like that word has been like made the benchmark by people like the MSC. And you got your bluefish logo, which is a really hard thing to achieve for a small scale fisherman, is to have that that benchmark of sustainability from people like the MSC, because it's all the public associate with fish is that MSC logo. Is it got it? Has it not? Oh, well, if it doesn't have it, it's not sustainable. So I prefer to use the term like responsible, like I'm doing everything that I can to responsibly fish the area that we fish or the fishery that we fish. I much prefer it because I have no data, I have no science, I have no facts to say I'm doing this sustainably. But what I do have is insight into that fishery, a feeling, a knowledge of what's best practice. Yeah, have I articulated that well enough?
Let me tell you, I think you've done an excellent job of it. And to let you satisfy you that you've certainly not offended me, what I class it as the most abused word in the English language.
What, sustainability?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, and I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
And you'll get people saying, "Oh, I'm sustainable." There's no depth to them. They just think,
Mm-mm.
"Oh, all they need is a buzzword. All we need to
Yeah,
use it as a tag on a social media
yeah,
post or
yeah,
something." It's just
yeah.
abused
It
totally.
is. It is. But what I can say is, I can, hand on heart and say, do you know what? What I'm doing is responsible, um, and I'm acting in a responsible way to protect the longevity and the health of the fishery that I work and that I access. Because I see what I do, I know what I do, and the decisions that Nigel and myself make are done with responsibility in mind.
I think one of the best campaigns ever in our industry was when Seafish took out that responsible fishing campaign. I thought it was a amazing thing to take on.
Yes, I think yeah, I think I remember that. Is that still active?
Every one of the top boats, certainly in Scotland, were involved in it.
Signed up to it. Yeah.
Right, definitely.
Mm.
And what a great, so much better than this. Oh yes, I'm sustainable. I at a seafood restaurant, and we won the UK the UK Sustainable Restaurant of the Year. And
Oh, good.
and I was asked for my views on it, and I told them it was in London, the award ceremony,
Mm.
and that's what I told them. I says, "Well, thank you, but it's to me, it's the most." I told them then it was
Mm.
the most abused word.
Word in the English language. Oh, brilliant. Well, I know I'm glad to know I've got you in my corner on that anyway. So
Oh,
if anyone
totally,
comes for if
totally.
anyone comes for us, Jim.
Or another way, you're on safe territory, you're on safe ground.
Mm.
The industry often gets painted in a negative light, maybe trawlers, quotas, bycatch. Do you think that's a fair picture?
No, I really don't. And actually, I will take my hat off to you for the sort of mini series. Well, I don't want to say mini series because that's not fair. You did run a series of episodes, precisely with that in mind, and the ocean
Yeah.
documentary, and you did a wonderful job with wonderful guests.
Oh, thank
Of
you.
of written. No, it was really well thought out. It was really well put together. And if anyone's listening hasn't listened to that, they absolutely should, um, because the industry is it's like we've already said, it's such a complex space, and there's so much nuance and there's so much balance that's needed. But oftentimes it's yeah, I think with this industry, there's so much nuance, there's so much balance. Nothing is ever black or white. But for NGOs, the media, it's really, really easy to take one little fact, or I don't even want to say fact, just something that's really nice and packaged really well that the public can understand and that politicians can understand, and then go just run with it, just run with that narrative. Damn the actual truth. It's it's kind of why I like to do what I do on social media, to actually put a real person with a real life and a real I don't want to say knowledge, but just show people, open the doors up of the fishing boat and say, we're real people. This is our real job. This is how this kind of stuff affects us. Which is why I do what I do on social media, just to try and add some of that nuance, add some of that. It's not just black and white. It's a very sliding scale of what this industry is.
Do you feel that fishermen's voices are being heard enough in those debates?
Um, no, I don't think fishermen's voices are being heard enough. But I also, I also don't think that's how do I say this? I think fishermen's voices. I think that most of them are just sick and tired now of having to constantly stand up for themselves. It's a constant battering sometimes from environmentalist groups, from the media, from government, and all the time it seems like you're fighting for you're justifying your work at every opportunity, and nothing ever feels like it's changing for the better. So people get to the point where they're like, I can't keep screaming into the void anymore because nothing's changing. So I'm just going to get my head down and I'm just going to crack on and do my work. And I can't blame them for that. you know, it does sometimes feel like you're being vilified just for trying to put seafood on people's plates.
Exactly. Where do you see the future of coastal fishing in Britain? Do you feel optimistic about it?
Do I feel optimistic? I do and I don't. I think I'm worried that we don't know what the future holds for the industry, and I think a lot of that. I think I, th- I think this the things like in the coastal communities particularly. We've got small boats accessing those fisheries, and we've also got, we've had the negotiations with Brexit, and we're stuck again for another 12 years. And if we can't see a future past that 12 years, because we don't know what's going to happen, you've got a lot of the large operators not investing into their businesses because of, that future uncertainty. All of that uncertainty and all of that non-investment is going to trickle downhill. I think I said it in the beginning, we're part of one bigger space. We need big boats and small boats, nomadic boats. We need all of it in order to keep everything ticking along. We can't exist in isolation. So if we don't see investment from the larger scale, we're not going to start seeing that benefiting the smaller boats. Things like markets. You only have to look at the might of places like Brixham Market, which is seeing, a lot of volume landed by bigger boats. But then you're seeing, and good prices down there. But then you're seeing the smaller boats accessing that as well, and also being able to secure better prices for their catch. So everything kind of exists in this circle. So if we can't see what's coming in the next 12 years because of the deal that we've had with Brexit, and larger boats aren't investing into the future of our fisheries, it will affect coastal communities. Not as quickly, but it will affect them. And even though I'm kind of optimistic about some of the conversations that are happening, especially the conversations that are happening around sort of the social science aspect of things, and people looking into the that social aspect of fishing and protecting our legacies, protecting our heritage. I'm intrigued to see where that's going. There's been a lot of conversations happening about removing barriers so that the inshore fleets can diversify and perhaps try and catch some different or target different species. Really intrigued to see where that's going. So I am optimistic about some things, but other things I'm a little bit like, what's going to happen with that?
Good. I'm sorry if this is a difficult question. If a young person asked you about joining the industry, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to join the industry 100%,
Okay.
because of the reward, how rewarding this industry is, and because of all the knowledge that you're going to pick up, within it. I mean, in what other jobs do you have to be? A qualified meteorologist, a mechanic, an electrician. There's so many professions. You do the sales, you do the marketing, you do the finances, you do all the problem solving. So you learn so many skills before you've even gone to try and catch a fish with its own free will. So there is so much transferable skills as well in this job, I personally feel. But I would say to any young person coming into this industry, go and get yourself a trade as well. Go to college, do a trade in something, just so I know this sounds like you shouldn't say this, but just so you've always got something else that you can turn your hand to if you needed to. Which sounds horrendous, doesn't it, really? Like, yeah, come and do this job, it's amazing, but just be aware that we don't know what the future looks like. God, I feel awful having said that.
Well, it's terrible to say it, Ashley, but you want me to make you feel even worse.
Go on. We're in this doom cycle now, Jim.
No, seriously. It just takes my mind back. When I was a child, obviously, as I've said to you, my father was a fisherman, always a fisherman, and days off school or weekends or that for me, there's only one place I was ever going to be, and that was on the harbour and on the boats. And all I wanted to be, my mother said to me in later years, she says, we never had a problem with you, really. There was never police at the door or anything like that. She says, the biggest problem we had with you was getting you to go to school, because you used to always say to us, I don't need to go to school, I'm going to be a fisherman. And then when it came to me leaving school, wait for this, Ashley, what you said there, my father says to me, you're not coming on board the boat. You've got to go and get a trade. You've got to go and get a trade before you come on board, because you'll have something to fall back on. I'm talking about the 50s.
Okay, so then
And
that's quite
when,
positive,
when
Jim.
I know, but when you think of it, what's different now?
Yeah, but we could swerve that and say if he was saying that in the 50s and we're saying that now, but the fishing industry's still here, it's fine. Don't go and get a trade. Come and be a fisherman.
But his reasons for me having a trade was the uncertainties of the industry. Well, they're still uncertain.
That's what I mean. So actually, we're all worried, but actually maybe it's safe, because if he was saying that and we're saying that, but the industry's still here and ticking along, yes, it's probably ticking along in a lot of a different way, but it's still going. Maybe we are safe. Maybe we shouldn't be telling people to get a trade.
Gee, you're taking me back here. If you had the power to change the policies, just say tomorrow, to make life better for fishermen, what would it be?
Oh, where do we start with this? You know, there's a lot of things that we could do. I'd like to see a lot of reform in the MCA and the way they go about their operating practice, as I'm sure many would. I would like to see more regional approaches to the way that we manage fisheries, and I would like things not to take as long, because oftentimes when they bring in policy, you're shutting the door after the horse has already bolted. But I think it would be nice to have a fisheries minister that actually understands the fishing industry, actually has perhaps come from a coastal community where there used to be a thriving fishing fleet. That's a tongue twister. Where that has in decline, and understands what's happened, where it's been, why it is the way it is. Someone that's young enough to want to leave their legacy behind of what they've done for fishing communities. So I think, because ultimately the buck stops there, doesn't it, with policy and with legislation. So I think I'd want to see someone in charge that actually understands and actually cares about the future of this space.
That's a really good answer, Ashley, and I'll tell you where I'm coming from with that. I seriously mean that. And I'm sure from what you say there, it tells me you've been in the same position yourself as what I'm going to say to you just now. I'm on the pier in Scrabster, a good friend of mine landing his fish on the pier. He comes up and after the landing's finished, we're chatting away. He has a sheet of paper in his hand, just got it from the fisheries people with new regulations coming in. He turned to me and says, Jim, what gets me here, he says, look at this sheet of paper. That's telling us what we have to do, what we have to change, and all that. And he says, I can just see the way this is written and the words they say, this has been written by somebody that's never been on a fishing boat in their life.
Exactly. And I think, if we had this magical minister that I shall call them, that came from somewhere that perhaps once had a thriving fishing community and now perhaps doesn't, or is seeing it in decline. I mean, I went into Bucky once on the boat, and you could see that places like Bucky used to be like the epicenter. And you'll probably know this better, being up in Scotland. I only visited once. But the impression that I got was that Bucky used to be like the hub, the epicenter. There was money there, there was trade there was fishing boats there. And now it echoes that, but it's like it's devoid of life, and it's brown and it's morbid and it's depressing. And it's like you can see the loss that the money from the fish has stopped, and it breaks my heart. And I just wish that we had a minister that could see that, through the same lens as we see that, and actually cared enough to do something rather than just, just sit there and take retirement, if you know what I mean. I know that sounds awful, but we often get people who are of a certain age who perhaps don't need to leave a legacy behind for themselves. I want to see someone with some passion.
This is unreal the way you're taking so much back in my life, because if you take a short drive along the coast from Buckie, there's what was a well-known fishing port in its day, Lossiemouth.
Oh, I know it.
And it was, when I was a kid, that Lossiemouth was the biggest sea net port in the country. And obviously Inverness was in main town, so the registration was INS from Inverness. And we used to tag the Lossie men, INS, I never sleep.
Brilliant. Very good.
As a kid on school holiday, I was out fishing on the family boat, and we had to go into Lossie as we all call it. And here, if you can just picture it, here's me as a kid, get up into the bunk, walk up to the deck, and I'm just doing the 360 degrees turn, and I'm just amazed and so excited. Just an absolute harbour full of boats, about twice the size of our boat. I mean, our family boat was 54 feet. I often joke with people now, it would go into the hold of a modern boat. But we all thought she was a battleship.
Of course. And you know what? She was a battleship, Jim. She was.
For us, she was.
She was.
She was. But it was, what an experience. I would have been 10 or 11, 12, something like that. And now I'm in my 70s, and I still remember standing on that deck, and I was just gobsmacked.
If you went to Lossiemouth now and you stood,
you looked around. It's a yachting marina.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I mean. And that feeling that you probably get deep inside to know what it was and now look at it is something that I wish could be bottled. I wish we could bottle that and ram it down the throat of every person that has a say in the way that this industry is managed, just to know, feel this, understand it. And by the way, if I know you've got a copy of my book because you won one at the awards, but there is a certain chapter in that book dedicated to Lossiemouth. I won't give any spoilers away to you, but just flick through. I can't remember what chapter it is, but something happened at Lossiemouth which changed me as a human being. So I'll leave that one with you.
Well, the other one you're leaving with us, Ashley, is when you were just getting into full mode there, and before you says person, there was a hesitation, and I just wondered, what's coming next?
When did I hesitate? Hang on, when did I hesitate?
You were talking about and saying person, and you just a slight hesitation, and I
can't remember now. I can't remember if I held myself back or not, Jim. We got deep into into the feels. So
yeah. You've built a strong online following by showing the reality of fishing life. What made you decide to start sharing those stories?
I think the reason I started social media, I genuinely wanted to connect with other fishermen from around the country and see if they were experiencing the same things that we were when it came to things like fisheries management and the way things were changing, to share knowledge, share stuff, share what's going on. When you're in a fishing community, it can be extremely isolated. And sometimes you forget that there's a whole other industry out there all around the coast. But what I didn't expect was to get the following of the general public, and who are am fascinated by what we do, because it's a job that you can't just pop your head in the door of. When a boat goes out to sea, as a member of the general public, you see a boat leave, you see a boat come back, but you don't see what happens in the middle. And the fish on that boat all belong to the general public. They're a common resource, but yet they have no concept or clue as to what happens in the middle. So I think it's their kind of right to see that.
Well, that's really interesting, because I take it the public reaction does surprise you, does it?
Absolutely it does. And they ask such great questions as well about, what happens with this? Where does that go? Why do you do things this way? Why do you do things that way? How is this done? How do you deal with how do you deal with this, that, or the other? And, and it's things that we all take for granted. It's just the way that we run our businesses, we run our lives. But there's this general fascination, and because it's such a closed off job and such a closed off sector, which is why I think I feel so strongly and passionately about the fact that it's food production. These are the people that are going to be eating. I think we forget that a lot, that actually what we're producing is actual food that people are going to eat. I know that sounds silly, but sometimes we become so far removed from it in the things that are going on and the way that we're being managed, that we forget that this is food for people, and those people want to and have a right to understand why things are done the way they are, what happens in the middle, what are you doing to make sure that you're doing things responsibly. So yeah, I think that's my biggest motivator, really.
There's only one word I would add to it. You said there, Ashley, when you're saying about food for people, before that I would put health
food for people.
So health food for people. It's low fat, high protein. It ticks every box on every diet as a recommendation.
You say that, but I fry a lot of my fish in a hell of a lot of butter, Jim.
Nothing wrong with butter. I have to say I use a lot of butter when I'm cooking fish. Now, you're going to feel, I know your reaction to this one, so what I'm going to say to you, ask you now, let me tell you, it's my chosen word, so you don't have to react to it. Do you feel a responsibility now to be an ambassador for the industry before you say anything? That's what I think you are.
Oh, do I feel a responsibility? I don't know how to answer that, Jim. I never intended, again, as I said before, I never intended to become a role model for women. I never intended to become an ambassador for the industry, but it's an industry I'm really proud of, really proud to be a part of, and I
think
it's given me so much.
It's an industry. Sorry, I would say it's an industry that's very proud of you, Ashley.
Oh, Jim, don't. We're all going to start crying in a minute. So sweet. Thank you.
No, I seriously mean that.
It's given so much to me. So I feel like I owe it, if that makes sense. Like it's given me opportunity. It's given me knowledge. It's given me, I never got the chance as a kid, and especially as a woman, as a young girl, to tinker with things like engines, which, by the way, are fascinating. And I've learned so much about, the process of combustion on a 6-cylinder diesel. And, so I've learned about so much, fishing centric stuff, that I kind of feel like I owe it to the industry. Not that I have a responsibility, but that I kind of owe the industry for everything that it's given me. And I will champion it until I'm blue in the face.
Well, that's a really good answer. Mm-hmm. And you just don't have to forget, yes, you've got a lot out of the industry, but in fairness, Ashley, you've given a lot to the industry.
I don't...
A profile for...
Yeah, I suppose I have... I always feel like I could do more, though. I'm one of those people. Like I could always feel like I could do more, or you could do better, or you could do this, or you could do that. But then that's why I have an inbox that's full of probably 300 unread emails from people. So yeah,
that's fantastic. You use the social media presence well to raise awareness about the fishing as we've talked about and encourage more women to enter the industry and promote, but you also promote British seafood admirably.
Well, what I think we've got the most diverse. I don't know. We've got the biggest multi-species fishery in the world. That's us, isn't it? Like, why are we not championing it? It's something. We've got incredible produce, and let's face it, our own great British public actually there's not an easy access for them. It's so hard to find, the produce of our own boats, especially small boats, who make up 80% of the fleet, in the supermarkets where it's easy for them to get it. It's not easy for the British public to get hold of seafood.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to steal a little of your thunder. I said I made that exact same comment as you made there to a fisheries scientist. He was with ACES at the time during a podcast, Mark Dickey Colas. And I referred to our fishing as the biggest multi-species, and he says, no, it's not. Caribbean and fisheries like that are much more. But I still think it's very big multi-species fishery.
Well, I was going to say, you heard it here first, everyone on Seafood Matters podcast listeners. Jim and I say it's the biggest multi-species fishery in the world. So it is.
Yeah. And to qualify that, we'll say Ashley said it, so it must be right.
Oh, thanks for chucking me under that bus, Jim.
Oh, wonderful. If you had the choice of your favourite seafood meal, what would that choice be?
Skate all day long.
Wow.
Love it. Yeah. Fried in butter, obviously. But yeah, and then close second, squid.
Yeah. I love squid.
It's delicious, isn't it?
Oh, I don't think there's a fish, anything coming out of the sea that I don't like.
Do you know what I don't like, though? My least favorite. You should ask people what their least favourite fish is. And it's one that, I peddle this fish a lot in the summer. Mackerel. I cannot stand it.
Wow.
Unless it's raw. I'll eat it raw, happily. But I think I gutted so many of them when we were on the charter angling boat that I just now, whenever I eat it, all I can smell is that, or taste is like that smell of how rich they are and how irony they are as the smell. Yeah. That's all I can taste now. And I just can't deal with cooked mackerel.
Right. Now, here's a tip for you. Do you like kippers?
Yes.
You do? Okay. Do you smoke fish yourself, or do you know somebody that smokes fish?
Yeah, I know people that can smoke fish.
Right. You give them, or you get some mackerel and
smoke it.
Smoke it as a kipper, cold smoked, and kippered mackerel. It's just outstanding.
Okay, I will try it. I'm sure I've had smoked mackerel before, but I will try it, Jim. I will try it again, and I will report.
Much, much, much better to me anyway. It's a way ahead of, herring is a traditional kipper, but kippered mackerel to me beats kippered herring hands down.
Okay.
You get the fleshy, meaty bite as well as there's flavour.
Okay, I will give it a try. But
thank you. Ashley, where can our listeners follow you online?
So they can follow me on Instagram, and it's very simple. It's at the Female Fisherman. And they can always, as well, if we've got any women listening that are in the seafood sector, can always look up UK Women in Fisheries as well, and come and have a look at the incredible work that we're doing over there to empower women within the industry. What
do you feel about this idea or the group that's forming Women in Fisheries?
The UK Women in Fisheries.
Yeah,
I do work for them, and the membership is growing at a really, really good rate. And it's just, like I say, it's a free network for any women working in the space to come and connect. There are quite a lot of member benefits as well. So, we have a directory over there where other women can find other women working in the sector. And that can be any job. That can be whether you're in the catching sector, whether you're a partner of a commercial fisherman, whether you're in marine science, fisheries management. And I just think that women offer such a different perspective when it comes to fisheries and fisheries management and resource management. And I think we need to start balancing, the spaces where we're managing fisheries with more diverse genders, because we get such different perspectives, and women look at things sometimes through a completely different lens than that of a man. And I'm not saying one way is right or one way is wrong. I'm just saying we need that broad diversification. And so I think empowering women to be able to be more involved in fisheries is a really good thing.
It's the funny thing, I think, when because I think it's great, but I don't, for somebody my age, I think, well, there's nothing's different, nothing's changed. My grandmother was heavily involved in the industry and the work they did. And, bare hands, the gutting herring and
hard work.
mending, hard work.
Yeah. And I think and UK Women in Fisheries definitely wants to start championing, or has been championing. We have like a legacy series as well on our social media channels over there, and it features people like the Herring Lasses, Lillian Bolocka, the wives that worked in Fiddy, is it just outside Aberdeen? So we've featured a lot of those sort of legacy of women from back in the day, and so we've been featuring them because they are as much a part of this sector as the men catching, and are part of its heritage. So
wonderful. I think that'll be a good time to fold up. Ashley, thank you so much. That's been real fun.
Thank you for having me, Jim.